enough to keep the search alive. That's one of the things I learned a long time ago, is that a keynote speech rarely ever will change somebody's life. It will rarely ever change a career. So I changed my focus. And my focus now has become, I know in 45 minutes I can at least intrigue you. Maybe I can spark that sense of curiosity. And the beautiful thing about curiosity is that sometimes it can last a lifetime. And so that's my hope today, is that I can at least spark something within you. But first, I got to prove that I have at least some Jedi skills, right? Yes? Okay, good. So we're going to play a little game. Now, here's the fascinating thing about how the brain works. And I don't usually like walking in front of this, but I do like walking back and forth. And so I might actually, can I use this for a minute? Yeah? I'm going to just cover this up for just a few minutes here, so I can walk. Is that okay? Perfect. I'm going to slide this right here. And then that gives me a chance to walk back and forth, because I don't want to favor one side. So, Jedi mind tricks, is that where we're going? Yes? No? Close? That was good? So one of the things that we do know is that as we study the brain, as we understand this whole process, we know that the brain is somewhat lazy. In this information age, we're being bombarded with information left and right, and emails, and think of all the information and everybody just vying for just 1 ounce of your attention. And in that process, our brain needs shortcuts. And if you understand how those shortcuts work, we can use those moments to influence. And so I'm going to give you a quick example. But first, we need to understand, let's see how well you guys pay attention. You guys want to, well, in fact, let me tell you a little story first, because this is going to be important. I want you to imagine inside your brain that you have a guy by the name of Fred. He's sitting there. I call him Fred because it rhymes with head. You can call yours whatever you want to call it. And Fred sits there and he's looking out. And he's paying attention to everything that's going on. Now he's got computers, he's got microphones, he's got video cameras. He's paying attention. And Fred is in charge of your attention, okay? Now, there are certain things and certain times where Fred actually has to turn around and process and access a file or a memory or process a piece of information. Now when Fred turns around, I can do almost anything I want in front of you, and you won't see it. Here's the challenge. When Fred turns around, you won't even know it. But you will think that you're paying attention. You want to see an example? Yes or no? Yes, all right. Let's see how, so pull all your pens down if you would. In fact, I'll stand up here so you can see me, and see how well you guys follow directions here. All right, so I need your hands out like this, if you would, please. Now you can put them in front of you if you've got people next to you, and just clap them together once. Okay, clap together one more time. Perfect. Now your thumbs, I want you to point them down. Perfect, good. And then raise your right hand. Now some of you are raising your left hand. Why is that? Okay, now I want you to cross it over just like this. Very good, perfect. And then interlace your fingers just like that, good. Now make sure that your thumb, right thumb like this, is pointed out. Your thumb, I see some other thumbs that aren't pointed out. Okay, perfect. So now, as you're doing that, point your fingers out like this, and tap them together once, and tap them together one more time. So now, if you've been paying attention, your friend has not allowed me to deceive you. You should all be able to do exactly as they do next, which is this. So now, what's happened now? Good key note of every good talk is got to be with some sort of credibility, right? So what's happened? See, our Fred was paying attention, watching information, every single thing I was talking about, and there was a split second there that Fred turned around. See, I know when that happened, and I know exactly how to make that happen. And here's the cool part, so do you. We do it all the time. All of us in this room, we do it all the time, and things that we learn sort of intuitively by accident. And so the next question you should be asking yourself, okay, so what is this Fred, this attention span, this trick, what does all this really mean to my business? But first of all, how many originators, licensed, okay? How many managers would you say are in the room? Okay, managers. And how many, let's say other leaders, owners, or any other leader capacity, if you will? Okay, how many leaders in the room? That's a trick question. If I were to define a leader, anybody who influences behavior, how many leaders are in the room? It should be everybody. Okay, how many salespeople in the room? That's another trick question, really? How many salespeople in the room? All right. Are you guys, now, the people in business, are you guys for-profit or non-profit? For-profit? Okay, good. Let's just check it. These are just questions. I've got to understand my audience here for a minute. So the next question is, what does all this have to do with my business? What does this mean, and how do I apply this? And I want to walk you through 3 different visuals over here, and I'm hoping you can see these. We're kind of debating how we wanted to do this, but I have found if I draw pictures, it's just a lot easier to understand. So if you can't understand or don't hear something, don't see something, yell it out loud. It's a very relaxed environment, and I'll make sure I repeat it again. But I'm going to start with one question, and this question of why. Why is it that some companies, some organizations, some people, some salespeople are so much more successful than others when they have access to the same resources, the same training, the same books, the same interest rates? Why is it that some salespeople just sell more than others? While we're doing the same thing and we're watching this person just is excelling. Why is it that companies like Apple, which is just a computer company like Dell and Gateway, are consistently out-innovating their competitors year after year after year? Why was it that, and they have the same products, the same everything. Why was it that Dr. Martin Luther King was able to get 250,000 people to show up for him that day? He wasn't the only great speaker at the time. He wasn't the only person in the civil rights struggle. But yet, for some reason, 250,000 people showed up. Why Harley-Davidson, who's just a motorcycle company, is also the #1 tattoo in the world. This is a motorcycle company that people have permanently implanted their logo under their skin. I've never seen a Honda tattoo. Wouldn't even make any sense, would it? But for some reason with Harley, it makes sense. There's a great book, and if you haven't heard this book or seen this book, I highly recommend it. It's by Simon Sinek, called Start With Why. What he says in that is that all 3 of those examples, they think, they act, they lead, and they communicate in the exact same sequence. And that sequence is the exact opposite of how most of us communicate. And so when we think about that for a minute, it comes down to this, what he calls his golden circle. And I want to lay this sort of as a foundation to some of the things we're going to be talking about here today. And his model comes down to 3 questions. Of why, how, and what. So you got why in the middle, how in the next circle, and what on the outside. So let's define those real quickly. Everybody knows, everybody in this room, every company, every person, we all know what we do. Maybe we're husband, father, we're a business person, salesperson, banker, real estate professional, whatever it is. We all know what we do. The good ones understand how they do it. And this would be your unique selling proposition, the thing that makes you different. Very few, if any, ever talk about why they do what they do. So if you're like me, most of us were taught a certain sequence of speaking, especially in sales, which was, if you tell people what you do, and you tell people how you do it in a unique enough way, you can expect a behavior. Here's what I do, here's how I do it, buy this from me. Here's what I do, here's how I do it, vote for me. Here's what I do, here's how I do it, join our team. Here's what I do, here's how I do it, you name, fill in the blank. There's some behavior that was there. And most of us were taught that sequence. And so let's take an example that I think we would all understand of Dell. Dell is a computer company, right? Just like Gateway, just like Apple. And their form of communication is the typical outside-in approach where they talk about, here's what we do, here's how we do it, but they don't talk about why, and then they try to sell a product. So this is the typical, or what Dell's message sounds in the marketplace. We're a great computer company. We make custom products delivered to your door at an affordable price. You want to buy one? Nothing real inspiring there, is it? In fact, if you were to ask me a question, what would it be? And it's not why. If I were to ask you to buy based on those 2 things, what would you ask me? You'd probably say, how much, right? You say, okay, well, how much is it? And at that point, I'd have to come up with what is called a marketing manipulator. I know manipulator sounds like a bad word, but a marketing manipulator basically says anything that I can manipulate to help you drive a decision. I can manipulate my price. Anybody here ever lowered price to get a deal? Anything? We're talking bankers, right? We've all done it before. How about offering a deal of some sort, 2 for 1? We've all done those things. Those are marketing manipulators that get people to drive behavior. Now here's the good thing. Marketing manipulators are excellent for driving behavior that's required only one time. Only one time. Now how many people here are interested in just creating a transaction? I didn't think so. In fact, that's one of the things you hear all the time in the mortgage industry. I'm not transaction-based, I'm what? Relationship-based, right? And yet, the behavior though, so that's why I'll give you this discount. I'm not transaction-based, but yet I'm relationship-based, which is why I'll give you this deal. So do I think that's okay to give deals to your friends and people in relationships? Absolutely, all day long. But what's the challenge? Let's pretend. What's your name, sir? Victor. So Victor, let's pretend you want to buy a computer, and I'm selling you a computer. And what's your name? Shelly. I see you right there, Shelly. So Shelly is my competitor, right? She's not in the picture yet. So Victor comes to me, and I'm selling a computer, and I say, here's our great computer, here's what makes us great, here's our story, here's me, I've got a firm handshake, and I service him, I send him thank you cards, and I give him a 30% discount because he's buying 2. He ends up buying, right? He's happy. So I'm thinking I send him thank you cards, follow up with them, call him, give him a thank you, gifts and all the things to make sure that I've got a loyal customer, and I'm feeling pretty good about this. 2 years later, he needs another computer. What does he do? He comes to me, right? Comes to me. What does he say, though, when he comes to me? What does he say? Well, first, exactly. So he comes in, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, he came back. I have loyal customers. But the first thing out of his mouth is, can I get another deal? Now, if at that point I say, you know what, Victor, man, I'd love to, but that was kind of a special thing. We do that kind of to start building relationships. And so, hey, man, but I'm glad you're back. We got some great new things I'd love to show you. Now, Shelly down the street is offering 20%. She's never talked to Victor once. Who's Victor buying? Shelly. Why? I thought we had a relationship. Or was it based on something else? It was based on the fact that I gave him a discount. Here's the CEO of Visa one time gave me a bit of information that forever changed my life and the way I thought about this. He said, Rene, what do you get when you exceed a customer's expectations? What do you get? Some people say loyalty. I said loyalty. I said a customer for life. He said, nope. You get a customer with higher expectations. And I looked at him perplexed. I said, what do you mean? I said, imagine you go to dinner, go to a great steak dinner. And you go there and the steak comes out overcooked. And they come back, so how was your steak? And you say, well, you know what? It was a little bit overcooked. The manager looks at this and says, oh my God. Takes it back, comps the entire meal for everybody there. You're thinking, wait, wow, that was some real service. That was incredible. Man, you tell all your friends about how amazing the steakhouse is, and it's awesome, and you're an advocate. And next time you go to a steakhouse and they overcook your dinner, what are you expecting now? A free meal. What happened? That's the challenge. Now, that's not a bad thing. We're constantly raising the bar as consumers, but we have to really realize what is it that drives the relationship, because this approach here teaches us and teaches our customers to shop. So for example, let's pretend that I'm a law firm. Follow the same process. We're a great law firm. We hire the best attorneys and send them to the best schools. Do you want to hire us? They're going to say what? What's your hourly rate? If I'm a real estate agent, we're a great real estate company. We offer amazing marketing, have a broad network to sell your home. Would you like to list your home with us? What's the question they're going to ask? What's your commission? If I'm a mortgage banker, mortgage broker, we're a great mortgage company. I offer fantastic service and a broad array of products, and we truly care about you. Do you want to get your mortgage with us? What are they going to ask? What's your rate and closing costs? So this methodology teaches how to shop. So now, let's look at Apple and how they communicate. Remember, they're just a computer company like Dell, but they communicate the exact opposite of how the rest of us do. They begin with why, and they move their way out. Now, do people buy based on emotion or based on logic? Based on emotion. It's been proven for years. I ask this of originators, I ask this of managers, I ask this of leaders all the time. How much do you actually believe that? And they believe it, they say. I said, do you believe it enough to change your entire sales presentation? Do you believe it enough to change the way you speak to people? Because I guarantee you, and I've seen thousands of presentations, been part of organizations to change sales, and the first thing we begin is, what's your sales process? I want to hear your value proposition, how do you communicate it, and who's communicating it? And when we look at it, the presentation is as logical and systematic as it gets. There is nothing emotional about it. And so when we talk about it, Stanley Kubrick said, a great quote, he said, our ability to talk about a subject matter can create a consoling illusion that we've mastered it. That consoling illusion is a scary one. So when we look at this, here's Dell with this message of, we're a great computer company, we make custom products delivered to your door at an affordable price. You want to buy one? We go, how much? I want to give you Apple's message, but I want you to allow yourself to feel it. Feel the difference. I'm not really asking you to buy something, so you can kind of jump in and feel the experience for a minute. Apple's message begins with why. This is what it sounds like. Remember, feel the experience. Apple says, we believe in pushing the bounds of the status quo in everything that we do. We do that by making products that are beautifully designed, easy to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to be a computer company. If you want to buy one. See, that feeling that you have, that difference, is because I spoke to your brain in a different way. When I speak from this outside in, I'm speaking to a part of the brain that's located up here, called your neocortex, what we call the human brain. It's no different than a PowerPoint presentation. The PowerPoint presentation, one of the reasons why I've started moving away, and I'm very cautious of them, is that a good PowerPoint presentation, or excuse me, a PowerPoint presentation, will trigger part of the brain called Broca's area. Broca's area is also very correlated to Wernicke's area. There are two little specks in the brain. And if you look at a functional MRI scan, which colors the brain as it lights and ignites, when we look at PowerPoint, bullets, our brain has a little twinkle in it. But when we tell a story, or we draw a picture, guess what happens in the storyteller's mind? It lights up. But you know what else happens in the story listener's mind? What would you guess? It lights up as well, in the exact same way. Storytelling for over 57,000 years is one of those ways of connecting people in ways that we can't even measure today. It's one of my favorite things. When Rob got up here and spoke, what was the first thing he started off with? The story, right? And I started writing. As soon as I know a great speaker is up there telling stories, I start writing stories. I start writing down what they're doing. Because I'm going to actually have to ask him, can I use that joke later on? Because I thought that was fantastic. And he knows, here's somebody who is so intellectually smart about what's happening in the marketplace, but astute enough to say, I can't just start there. I have to connect with my audience through story, through humor, through laughter. That's the sign of somebody who knows what they're doing, but also as just how we function. So when we're looking at this piece of Apple, of what happened, we're speaking now, because Dell speaks to that Wernicke's area, but Apple speaks to a part of our brain that's much deeper, called our limbic system. Now, our limbic system has 35,000 times more neurons that fire when we make a decision versus the logical parts of our brain. The limbic system is what we buy into when we join a team, when we join a church, choose a political party. You want to see the limbic system in action? Ask somebody to change political parties right now. Ask somebody to leave their church. Talk them out of their church. How are they going to respond? Pretty defensively, aren't they? That defense is that limbic system, where we also call system 1. Our system 1 has a lot of energy, a lot of power behind it. And so as we understand this sequence, we say to ourselves, okay, so speaking with this what methodology leads us to price, but when we start with why, all of a sudden we experience it differently. And the reason is this. Because people don't buy what you do. They don't care. Even as Rob was saying, prices are almost all the same out there. There's no patent monopolies out there. We're getting money from almost the same places. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The challenging part is that the buying process is very unconscious. There's a lot of things and processes that are happening in the background that we don't see. Very similar to the trick I had up there. There's things that are happening all the time that we don't see. And part of the journey of leadership, part of the journey of being in good sales and influencing behavior is understanding when the brain turns on and when it turns off. Understanding that people just ate. Your digestive systems are at play. I better be somewhat either entertaining or high energy or something, or I'm just going to talk to you like this right after lunch. And we dim the lights. It'd probably be pretty soon before you were falling asleep, right? So I have to do something different because we understand that this is how the brain functions. And so I share this with you because I want to work our way sort of down these slides and into this, because this is going to be a skill set that I want to leave you with. I want you all to be able to leave here with a certain skill set. And I'm going to do a quick time check. What time am I done? How much time do I have? Where's my time? It's 1:58 right now. So we started late, so I've got half an hour. We're good. Okay, good. All right, so that's good. We're going to work our way down here because I want you guys to leave with an actual skill set that you can use. So we know that this piece here, starting with why, is different. So I'll give you an example, and then I want to sort of tie it to how the brain works and then leave you with something. So I was at a banking conference maybe 3-4 years ago. And I showed this brain model, or this why, how, what model, and I said, okay, who here would like to uncover their why? And a gentleman in the front row raises his hand. I said, great, what's your name? And he said, my name is Jonathan. I said, Jonathan, perfect, let's follow the process here. And we'll just go to this normal process. I said, what do you do? He says, I'm a mortgage banker. I said, great. So Jonathan, let's go into the how. What makes you unique? And he looked at me and he thought, he goes, I like to educate people. I said, great. So that's what makes you unique, right? And he goes, yes. I said, great. How many people here like to educate people? About 1,000 people in the room. How many hands went up? About 1,000, right? He looks around, he's like, oh. I said, it's okay, don't worry. We still are doing something. Let's just kind of follow the process here. So my name is Jonathan, I'm a mortgage banker, and I like to educate people. I said, Jonathan, you could have chosen anything. You could have chosen the lowest cost provider, you could have chosen product array, anything you wanted, but for some reason you chose education. Why? That's when he sat there. He said, you know, I don't know. I said, think about it. And he sat there and you watch his entire body shift from perplexed to this sort of epiphany that happened to him. And he said, I never thought about it that way. I said, please share. And he said, I'm Jewish, and to my father, education is everything. And I wasn't really good at school. And I remember me and my friends, we had this plan that we were going to go all drop out of school and we're going to go work and make money because it seemed like a much better idea. And I remember about halfway through my presentation to my dad, he got so upset with me, started yelling and screaming and called the school and pulled me out of the school the next day. Put me in another school 30 miles away, pulled me away from my friends. Man, I hated my dad at the time for it. Because when I remember back, and man, I look at my friends that actually dropped out of school, and one was in drugs, the other were in trouble with the law, and I realized what my dad did for me that day. I realized that he saved my life. I said, okay, stop right there. And you see him, he's in a different state, even just hearing the story. It's impossible for another human to not be engaged with that. And I said, okay, Jonathan, I'm going to repeat back to you what you told me. If you give me a little creative freedom. I said, but I'm going to change the order if that's okay. And he said, absolutely. So Jonathan, your first story was, hi, my name is Jonathan. I'm a mortgage banker, and I like to educate people. Would you like to have coffee, get a loan with me? That was the story, in a nutshell. So now, I said, Jonathan, I'm going to pretend that I'm you, and this is what you might be able to say. Just your story, just a different sequence, and I want you to feel the difference. So what do you do? He asked me, and I said, you know, it's interesting. My background's Jewish, and in my family, especially my father, education was everything. And I remember that was a rift between me and my dad because I wasn't very good at school. In fact, it was one of those things that me and my buddies, we had this great idea. We were going to drop out of school, and we were going to go get a job and make money. And I remember telling my dad about this, and about halfway through my speech, he freaks out on me, pulls me out of the school, puts me in a different school to pull me away from my friends. Man, I hated my dad at the time for this. But it was about a year later when I look back at what my friends turned into, the drug problem, trouble with the law, and just dead-end jobs, and they weren't happy. I realized what my father did for me, and he saved my life. And I knew that no matter what it was that I did, I wanted to give people the same gift that my father gave me. My father gave me the gift of education. He gave me the gift to understand information to make better decisions. And I realized that information was power to make my life better. Something that a lot of my family members, my friends, never got. So I knew no matter what it was, I wanted to educate people. So I went on a search for an industry that really had an impact. And it needed somebody to take the time to sit down with people, to walk them through a complex process. An industry where most people are overlooked for the easy deal. Where those families that maybe need the help don't get it. And so I got very excited, very passionate about being part of the mortgage and real estate industry. And that's what I happen to be a mortgage banker. But I'd love to learn more about your story. Can we have coffee? Is that a little different story? Dramatically different. It's different because, why? It allows us to engage with who he is. It allows us to understand who Jonathan is. And if you like who Jonathan is, the business is easy. The business is easy. Now think about this. Dell has failed at flat screen TV sales. Would you ever buy a phone from Dell? They have failed in phone sales. They have failed in MP3 sales. They have failed in every single other industry. But now, for some reason, would you ever buy a phone from Apple? Yep, you'd buy a phone from Apple. You'd buy Apple TV, flat screen TVs. You'd buy anything else? Oh, Apple Watch. If they had a lasagna in the menu, we'd probably want to try that, right? It's got to be different. It's got to be different somehow. And the reason is because we don't really care what Apple does. what we do is we believe what Apple believes. And if you believe what they believe, the rest of it's easy. If Jonathan sold insurance, we wouldn't care. We'd say, oh, that's a great extension, Jonathan. Tell me what you do. Because it's not about the what. So now, understanding, because I want to take this and I want to move this into understanding how this is sort of rooted in biology. How this has been my study, this little picture, for almost 20 years now. And I've always wanted to understand, why is it that some people that communicate information, and everybody laughs and thinks it's hilarious. And me as a kid growing up, I tried to do the same thing, and everybody would turn and look away or be repelled by what I was saying. And I couldn't understand it. There was something that I was like, why is it when they say it works, when I say it, it doesn't? Why is it that one leader says this and everybody follows, when this other leader says this and no one's listening? Why? And I was always compelled. And what I learned was that everything that, all our sensory input, everything we see, we smell, we touch, we taste, we hear, all of that information is routed through the brainstem. And it's at this moment, down in here, at a very primitive level, that our brain either accepts what's about to happen or rejects what's about to happen. And I thought that would be a really interesting thing to learn, because if I've got an idea, I'm hoping you'll accept it. If I need to communicate something, I mean, communication is kind of an important thing. In business, life, relationships, most of us talk, but very few of us are able to communicate. Some people talk, but no one listens. And I thought, well, okay, the purpose of talking is to actually have somebody listen, and what does it take for that person, because it's their choice. What does it take for me to be somebody that's worth listening to? Or how do I, those things that might be in the way, the noise that might be in the way, like through my value proposition. I gotta share my value proposition, and it sounds like everybody else's. It gets lost in this quagmire of noise in the marketplace. How do I calm that noise so that my message gets through? So if you can understand the importance of just understanding this little piece, it changes careers, it changes lives, it changes relationships. And so to understand this first part of the brain that information hits is what we call the reptilian brain. It's the first part of the brain to develop. It's charged for all your autonomic functions, your breathing, your heart rate, your digestion. All the things that, if they don't happen, you die. Very, very big burden. Because it has such a big burden, it also carries full authority to shut the rest of the brain down if it perceives any sort of threat. So it has this little thing in here we call the fight, flight, freeze response. The way that's triggered is imagine a really big panic button here, right? And if it perceives some sort of threat, maybe it's a shark or bear, something that's going to do it, it hits this panic button, fight for our lives, we run for our lives, or we stand still, and it shuts off any access to anything higher, and we begin to metabolize sugar to a very low part of our brain. You ever felt sometimes irrational, or arguing with somebody who's completely irrational? Significant other maybe. Don't point them out here if they're here. That's the part of the brain we call system 1, or reptilian, also known as the general adaptation syndrome. What happens when stress gets so high, stress in the brain, if it goes high enough, triggers death. Right? Because the brain doesn't know what a shark is. The brain knows that a shark causes a lot of cortisol to secrete in the brain. And that much cortisol causes the fight, flight, freeze response. And when I'm in the fight, flight, freeze response, I don't care about logic. I care about what's at the ends of my fingertips. Periphery goes away. Blood vessels constrict. Adrenaline starts hitting. And I can jump out through a 2-story window if I need to, lift a car to save my child, whatever it is. The brain is designed that way. The challenge is that what triggers that response was designed for a very primitive world, when we had to run from animals. And things were out to kill us. Now we're in a boardroom, and the CFPB shows up. Sort of the current modern day stress-inducing tiger, right? And might be out to take our head off. Who knows? Especially if we hear the stories. And all of a sudden, whatever it is, or maybe I've got to give a presentation. I stand up here, and I give them that presentation. Man, it's ready to go, and you go, okay, and they go, and you go. And you don't remember anything. Your brain goes blank. The reason it went blank, because stress went so high that it shut all of this down. And in this green area here, the limbic system, it's your memory center. And so access to long-term memory goes away. So there's really only one way past it. Navy SEALs will talk about it. Because if you think about it, system 1 is that, I'll give you another example of the shortcut that our brain takes. Because what you think about having our brain has a system 1 and a system 2. System 1 is this very fast thinking brain. Makes very quick decisions. It's not really big on details. It's very important. Like what emotion am I feeling right now? Happy, very simple, right? What about this face? Somebody once said constipated. I was like, no, 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 no. It's my mean face. I got to go work on my mean mug a little bit. Stink eye, I think you guys call it on here. Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah. So that's system one. So I'll give you an example, like the shortcut. So just very simple question, blurt it out when you have the answer. How many of each animal did Moses bring on the ark? So say it out loud. Two. So everybody here said two, but somebody actually got it correct, which was over here. How many did Moses bring? What was the real answer? It was 0, right? Because it was actually Noah who did it, right? So, as you guys said, Moses. System one, here's Moses and Noah, contextually close enough, says forget the details, win the race and get the answer right. Right? So it is. That's how it works. But it's important. It's a shortcut. But it's also, if you understand that shortcut, information slips by. But more importantly, if we understand that shortcut for ourselves, what would that mean? Oh, your skin color is this. Forget the details, I know who you are. Oh, you're from this neighborhood. Forget the details, I already have you in that bucket. Oh, your area code is that. That's a California joke, right? We already know who you are. Oh, political party, whatever it is. Our life, we're constantly searching to bucket things and to take shortcuts. But the sad part is that some of the richest, most amazing conversations lie outside of that system one thinking. When somebody says, because now I've done this so many times, where I go, man, my system one goes, oh, they're like this, and I go, wait, hold on. See, my mother, other part of my mother, she was a nun, she left the convent, thank God, all that stuff, but she went to work with migrant labor in southern Florida. She was a singer. She would literally go into the poorest neighborhoods in Santo Domingo or into the Panama and go into the central village and at the fountain in the middle of the sort of the El Pueblo and play her guitar. And the kids would come and she'd teach them how to read and write. That was my mom, right? Goes to southern Florida to help empower migrant labor in the late 70s, mid 70s. It's a certain group that didn't like that. It was a Ku Klux Klan. And they broke into her car, took her guitar, stabbed it 17 times, filled it with water. I have that guitar sitting on my mantle in my house. Sort of a reminder of history that really wasn't that long ago. But things like that were happening. People I think forget that this is recent. But I also have it because I've been all over the world doing this kind of work, inside mortgage, manufacturing sites, you name it, and I'm still triggered sometimes. Guy walks in, big dude, big beard like this, and he's got this monster Confederate flag on his shirt. I'm talking not even well designed, like, you know, right space. It's like from shoulder to shoulder, how big can I get that thing on there, kind of thing, right? Instantly, what system did I go into? System one. Now, my old system one, when I was younger, would have dealt with it very differently. This system one looked at this and said, okay, take a breath. Maybe there's a story there. And I had to continue with the workshop. Oh, and on the back, it said smart-ass white boy on the back, just to add a little touch to it. By the end of that day, he was one of the most caring, loving, hugging everybody, whatever skin color it was, the person in the entire workshop. And I've seen that happen so many times. Does that condone his ignorance of what the shirt he's wearing? No, it doesn't. But did my understanding of how the brain works allow me to see something else? And if I'm going to ask others to see other things, guess who I got to begin doing first? It's me. If you were to ask me the biggest challenge in the mortgage industry right now, if you had asked me 8, 9, 10 years ago, I would have said that there's no salespeople. It's an industry that doesn't know how to sell. It's an industry that attracted through no barrier to entry a lot of hustlers, people that made easy money, people that got overpaid. And all of a sudden, now the industry went to where it went. Government stepped in. We didn't fix it, they did. And now, I would say, what's the challenge? Because we got the professionals that are left, the pros. In fact, that's why I started BetterLoanOfficers.com, because we needed a place for the pros to be. If you were to ask me what the challenge is now, is we're the challenge of leadership. We need leadership. Not just at the corporate level. We need it at the branch level. Because right now we have an industry that's been promoted, and has promoted top producers into being managers now. Managers that have never been taught how to lead, how to hold people accountable, hold them to a standard, how to coach into higher performance. And I know this because part of my job is to work with companies to help grow production at the loan officer level. And I'll go in there, and if I'm there for a week, we'll see production go up and everything go up. As soon as I leave, what happens the next month? It goes away. They had the tools, they had everything. But what didn't they have? Somebody there to say, hey, you remember this, let's meet again, let's talk. Let's do this again. And so as we're thinking about this, and if you are a manager, if you are in management or have managers that work for you, I want you to think about the things we're talking about and how do we get people to start acting in different ways? Because we're talking about influence. We talk about being a mortgage Jedi. But really, the big change that really come to me over the years is that the big myth was that we do influence to people. We influence you. I persuade you that I'm doing this to you. It's not accurate. The reality is that people persuade themselves. They do it for themselves. My job is to ask the right questions. My job is to uncover what it is that truly drives them. Your job as leaders is to uncover what truly is driving them. How do I do that? Because once that happens, they're going to go pursue that with everything they have. So I'm going to give you one final piece. I want to take both of these elements and I want to put it into sort of this little model here. And in sort of a language sequence. So I want you to think about, as I'm trying to communicate something to someone, the biggest mistake, or when I'm asked a question, the biggest mistake that we make is we answer this question in the here and now, right here. We say, okay, so what's your favorite color? What's your favorite color? Blue. What's your favorite color, sir? Green. What's your favorite color, man? Purple. Okay. What's your favorite color? Red. Okay. Ask me my favorite color. Thanks for asking. So I was born in Miami, originally from Miami, and moved to Miami when I was 7, or Minnesota when I was 7. Can you imagine that? And lived half-time Miami, half-time Minnesota until I was 15. And so there was a long period of time where I didn't know where home was, right? I didn't know where it was, but there was always one place, though. So there was one place where I always felt at home. If I was on a beach and I looked up and I saw a palm tree. If I saw a palm tree, I knew I was close to my family. I knew I was close to my music, my food. I was just around people who love me. And so palm trees are green, so my favorite color is green. So what's the difference between that besides mine took longer? What's the real difference? One might be more interesting. Did you learn something about me? Right? You learned where I'm from, where I was at. I shared something that I didn't feel at home. So it's like, and if you ever moved around, you might have felt the same thing. We might have had a connection there. Palm trees, if you like palm trees, we all already have something there. I did all of that with a stupid question of what's your favorite color? And what I did is I didn't allow you to lead me to answer the question. I didn't follow this here and now thing. Somebody ever ask you, why would you be so stupid? And you answer that question, what if you just said, I guess I was stupid? It's the wrong question. Or somebody try to control something through that sequence. So part of the thing we have to learn is how not to do this. And what did I do? I went back here into the past, because this is the past, this is the future, and I created what's called a frame. A frame. The frame is what determines the understanding of what was just being said. So is it a big deal? Here's the thing. It's not unless the frame that's created could hurt you. And here's what I mean. The human brain can't hear anything without a frame. And everything that's said, it has to have a frame of reference of some sort. If I, the speaker, am not giving you the frame, guess who's giving me the frame? The listener. The listener. So if I don't give you a frame, like what did I do? I said, okay, I could have just said green. Oh, he's wearing a suit. Green must be money hungry, right? Or if I was in Montana, green, oh, well, we all know what that means. Or let's say that, if I was in Wisconsin, green, oh, he must love the Green Bay Packers. Because we have to associate it to something. So I'll give you a very brief example of just how important this is. And if it's not clicking for you, it's okay. But I think of this example, it'll click. There are so many times, and I see this happen with women leaders, young leaders, male leaders, anybody who speaks and thinks and forgets to frame things up. Because they're in a world that's ready to listen and frame them. Here's what happened. Working with a powerful woman, working preparing for an interview to become CEO of a billion-dollar division within a $160 billion organization. This was a huge opportunity. She was a PhD, as sharp as could be, way smarter than I'll ever be, way more experience, and she was trained. And here my job is to help her prepare for this interview. So we lined up a mock interview panel, and we had 3 people asking questions, and my job was to I just wanted to observe. First question was, tell us something you're proud of. She sits confidently, hitches her coat, looks up, and she answers directly, like how we were all taught, direct and to the point. And she says, something I'm proud of? I got straight A's my last year in school, something I worked very hard at, and I'm very proud of that moment. What's the problem with that answer? Too direct? Okay. What else? There was no why there, was it? And see, here's the thing. The feedback she got was, wow, that was great. It was to the point. It was direct. And they all gave her all this feedback. Say, Rene, what do you think? And all I did was just started framing her. Because, I mean, remember, the listener frames. I said, wow, your last year in school, you got straight A's? So you're a procrastinator? Does that mean you're going to procrastinate for us as well? She looks at me like, I said, oh, did mommy and daddy pay for school so you didn't have to work the first 3 years? So finally, the last year, you actually had to do something, which happens to be the easiest year. Is that what happened? Must be nice. She's looking at me like her jaw's on the floor, and she's actually got a tear now. And I said, Susan, and that's a fake name. I didn't illustrate a point. Clearly that was important to you, wasn't it? She just nodded her head. I said, but none of us know that. And then now the panel goes, yeah, I was actually kind of wondering why it was so like that. I'm like, well, why did you give the feedback like that? Because that's the thing, you have to be careful who's giving you feedback. And I said, it was important. She said, nodded her head. I said, yeah. I said, can you tell me why? It took her 1.5 minutes to get this out. And I want you to feel what happens. And I like, as much as I want you to be a student of this information, I want you to be a student of your own experience when I say this. Because the experience I'm about to give you is exactly what you can create for someone, or what you fail to create when you don't frame things. So I said, can you share it? It took her 1.5 minutes, and all I'm going to do is change up the frame, and I want you to feel what happens to you. 1.5 minutes, she looks at me and she says, when you've been told you're stupid your entire life, by adults you tend to believe it. And something happened my last year in school, I looked myself in the mirror and I said, either I'm going to believe that forever or I'm going to do something about it. And I did something about it. That changed the story a little bit. It changes everything, doesn't it? Because now we know why. Because it's not the fact that she got straight A's, who cares? It's the why and the story and the journey that she went through that we'll either relate to or repel against. But the challenge is that the world is not going to frame us nicely, usually. The world is going to frame us based on their own experiences. The world is going to frame us based on what they've been through, what their past is, what their frustrations have been. And I urge you not to allow that frame or what you say to go out without the proper frame. The world isn't nice when it comes to that stuff. It's not that they're doing it intentionally or malintent. It's just not going to happen. So there's the last piece of this part of this, what I call the influence equation, which is what we call the tie down. The tie down is what creates influence. Because we're talking about becoming mortgage Jedis, right? The power of influence. Influence or leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. If a leader cannot influence behavior, is he or she still a leader? By definition, no. They may have positional power, but they don't have interpersonal, persuasive, influential power. So this tie down, this next piece, is the part where now, with the frame, I have moved you emotionally, I've brought up emotion. But if I don't do anything with that emotion, we're going to find ways to just dissipate it and push it away, maybe through a walk, take a deep breath, hopefully tell a joke to ease the tension, something, and it would have been lost. But when we use a frame to get the emotion up, as influencers, we have to do something with that, which is what we call the tie down. The tie down answers the question of what this means to you is, or what I need you to do with this is, the next behavior I need to make is this. And so, if you think about it, you're going to know the moment I'm going to I use the tie down. Her job, or her influence objective is what? To get hired, isn't it? Right? She wants a job, clearly. So she wants to hear the words, you're hired. And so before, tell us something you're proud of, she said, I got straight A's, frame's gone wild, we don't know what everyone's thinking. Right? Now, if she's trained, she's going to give a frame first, and then tie it down. But then people are going to be like, wow, that was powerful. Who's next, right? We want them to say, hold on a second, I can't go another moment without hiring this person. That's what we want to create. That's what the tie-down creates. So I'm going to give you the full sequence, and I want you just to feel and experience what it feels like. This is how it went down. So she said, tell us something you're proud of. And she said, well, unfortunately, growing up, I was told by a lot of adults that I wasn't very smart. And as a kid, you tend to believe those things, and I acted that way. I didn't do real well in school. But something happened my last year in school. I looked myself in the mirror, and I said, either I'm going to believe that forever, or I'm going to do something about it. And I went out there, I got the help that I needed, got the coaching, the tutoring that I needed, got rid of my distractions, and I'm proud to tell you that I got straight A's my last year in school. Tied up. It's Victor, correct? There's a tie-up. So Victor, I'm assuming that if I do get a chance to work with you and your team, there's going to be a time that people are going to tell us there are things we can't do. There's going to be competitors that are going to make it seem that our next task is impossible. But I promise you this, if I get a chance to work with you and your team, I'm going to take every ounce of my experience and my perseverance to overcome those challenges in the same way that I overcame them in my own personal life, but this time for you and your team. What do you feel like doing? Hired. So what happened? I took all the emotion and I funneled it towards a meaningful action. And if that meaningful action resonates with your values, if it resonates with your intellect, your logic, what makes sense to the business, if it makes sense as a whole, what are you going to do next? You're going to take that next action. That's what influence is about. When we think about it in this sequence of, one, the frame is also what? The why. The frame is the why. And this why is what we call a framing device to put into the sequence of driving action. Because now we know in the brain, this is how the brain functions. I tell people all the time, stop working against the brain. Stop working against it, start working with it. It has a sequence, it's been identified. And when we work with it, everything works a lot easier. So I'll leave you with one final question. I think I got 4 minutes, is that correct? 4? And thank you for the clock, this is actually working out really well. I'm on island time with you to watch. So I'll leave you with one final question. As leaders, as people are trying to sell something, part of your job is not only understanding your why, but what you're trying to do and communicate that in a certain sequence, but what else are you trying to do? Understand their why. In fact, I tell you, the most powerful leaders are the ones that hear the answer of, I got straight A's in school. Normal, regular people, where the average will say, oh God, straight A's, they'll frame her and go, let's get the next one in. The good leader will say, hold on a second, you just told me straight A's. Why would you tell me that? What was that? And they dig, and they uncover, and they search, and they ask a question, they probe, and they uncover something. That's the sign of a real leader. But I want to leave you with one very powerful question, and one very simple technique that can help uncover somebody's why. And let's pretend that maybe, for example, how many parents in the room? Okay, so any parents in the room struggling to get the kids to maybe clean the room? We all have that issue, or maybe eat a certain thing, or maybe have a parent that we got somebody that we know trying to influence a certain behavior. Anybody that will so for example, what's the thing that we say? Okay, so clean your room, and what do they say? No, yes, there's going to be some resistance, right? So when we do that, what's the thing that we try to do? Push them to want it. We could have just conversations about the benefits of a clean room. We could even go into the benefits of why it's so important and try to do it that way, right? But what are we doing at this point? We're pressuring and we're pushing and we're triggering system 1 reptilian, okay? So try this next time. Have them scale their motivation. And I'll give you an example. So think of a scale of 0 to 10. You say, son, I know you don't want to clean your room. In fact, you know what, honestly? You really don't have to. This is going to be your choice. So now I am reducing pressure. It's gone. I've got to do it in whatever way I can. But let me ask you, let's say scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you to clean this room? What do you think it'll give me? What do you think it'll give me? Let's pretend it gives me like a 3, right? It gives me like a 3. It goes, I don't know, like a 3. Now, normally, what would we ask next? Why isn't it a 10? Or if we're good sales, well, what would you need to see from me to make it a 10? Right? We've all learned that. But what that's doing is there's no energy here. You have to ask the irrational question. And this is what it is. You say, oh, 3, interesting. Why didn't you go lower? Well, what happens though? What do you think is triggered now? Because guess what this is? There was enough motivation to get him to a 3. He's going to talk about, he says, well, you know, because, I mean, obviously, Dad, if I don't remember, I'm going to be a slob. You know, obviously, I mean, there are certain benefits. Like, I'm kind of sick of searching for the clothes, especially when we're on a date. I'm kind of sick of doing this. What's he not starting to talk about? Think about it. His motivations. And who owns those motivations? He does. I can't put them, but I don't know what they are. And I've got to uncover them. If I say, so why wouldn't you? What is it about that? And all of a sudden he starts talking about it, and then that's an opening of a conversation. Well, tell me more about that. So why don't you want to be a slob? What's important about that? All of a sudden now it's an insight. But you have to be able to ask the irrational question. So how many phone calls? You're going to make 10 phone calls, you know, let's say there should be about 100 phone calls a day. Like, well, what's your motivation level right now to make these 100 phone calls? I don't know what's going on. Probably about like 3 or 4, maybe 5. So okay, cool. Well, awesome. Why didn't you go lower? I mean, why are we even talking about this? I mean, you don't even have to make these calls. Why are we even having this discussion? I said, well, I got to sell something. I know, but calls? Why? Well, I got to. I mean, I do have some pretty good goals, big goals this year. Well, which goals? Do you see where we're going with this? We have to think differently sometimes, because when we're pushing and pushing and pushing, we're not leading, we're not influencing. And if you can understand the differences, the influence is not something I do to you, but something that you do for yourself. And if I can just help guide you to what that is, now all of a sudden lives begin to change. So if I can leave you with that one statement, is that influence is not something you do to somebody. Influence is something you guide people towards to help them do for themselves, through your storytelling, through your experience, through your compassion, through your listening. So that's the end of my time. I want to thank you very much for having me out here, and I'll be around here somewhere probably to answer questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rene. Okay, we're going to move right along here. We have our next speaker is Steve Richmond. Steve is a national speaker.